All right, guys, and welcome to another episode of Mac Yak, number 81. So we're moving right along here. We're going to be at 100 episodes here pretty soon. First off,
Hey,
let's do a audio check so we make sure everything's good to go.
Testing one, two,
check,
three.
So
check.
hopefully
Hello,
everybody can
check.
hear everybody.
Thunder.
Huh?
Oh, whoa,
Roll.
whoa,
Uh,
whoa.
Oh, Steve just paused.
Looks like the storm took out Steve's.
Yeah, Steve's in the middle of a storm, so
Yeah, Steve may have lost power just now. So
I like the fact that he's just frozen in that.
okay, Scarlett says the sound is good, so we're good. All right.
Hey.
We're actually
The
going
last image
through.
of Steve.
Yeah, we're actually going through Rocky's audio thing now on.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So, anyways, guys, welcome. And like I said, I am also experiencing storms here. Not the cuckoo clock, but I am experiencing storms. So, not as bad as Steve right now. However, I do have UPS, except I don't have a UPS on my router in the closet where the FiOS comes in at. So, one of these days I need to put a UPS in there, and then otherwise I won't, lose anything. So we just lost Steve completely there. I think we should leave him there like that. What do you think?
He just texted. He just texted.
Yeah. So, anyways, hopefully he can get back online here soon, and we'll get him back in here. We got a lot of good stuff to talk about tonight. Jay won't be with us tonight. He's got some prior commitments, and Grudy's not going to be here either. So it's just going to be the five of us tonight. Well, four of us now, but
Four and a half.
Yeah.
anyways, how you guys been doing this week?
Good.
Good.
Pretty good.
I've been doing all right.
Yeah, moving along. Oh,
Oh,
is he back?
is he back?
Oh.
I see a 84 there, but
Hold on, my machine's still booting.
ah,
I think I clicked Skype too early. Oh my
ah,
goodness, that was exciting.
you lost power.
Yeah,
Well, okay,
a lot
now
of things just happened.
that's a good question. Now we can ask Steve is why don't you have a UPS?
I have one. I don't have one with a working battery. That's
Ah.
That doesn't really count.
So
well,
it's just power.
I have a lot of things.
Uh,
It's a very good power ship. Let's just say that. Let's unplug the camera real quick. Sorry about that, guys.
but anyways, that was funny. The pause there, and it just happened right when we were introducing everybody. So
There we go.
there we go.
Sorry. Yes. So I hope you heard the thunder rumble at least before the power went out.
Yeah,
Just the start of it, and then
yeah, and then you were gone. So other than the thunderstorm, we've been asking how everybody's been doing. So how you been doing there, Steve?
Been doing good. I am very, very hard at work trying to get some videos out to you guys soon. So that's why I've been kind of quiet.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk a little bit about that later on tonight. So we'll let you try to get some help there. All right. So let's go ahead and move on to our news and announcements right off the bat here. This news, and our history this month, July 17, 2002, the iMac G4 17-inch was the first 17-inch iMac. Okay, that's the, I'm assuming that was the gooseneck
Yeah.
or the lampshade or whatever you want to call it.
The G4 model. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. All right. July 19th, 2000, the G4 Cube is introduced. I think that was
Momentous
everyone's favorite, but hate it, most favorite hate it version of it.
The cube is very controversial. Either people don't like it or they love it.
Well, it's
I-
probably the design is the only thing that people like about it. Probably the actual use of it was something to be left to be desired.
It was a bit overpriced, I think.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think
When it came out.
the Cube is one of those things that when it came out, no one wanted to fork out for it. It wasn't worth the money to buy it. But now people want one in their collection.
Well, yeah, because it's
Yeah.
cool looking, and they can afford it now
Yeah.
because
That's right.
And you can mod them to a certain extent.
I think and I keep saying this, but I think the biggest problem was that was like right at the cusp of you still needed like a PCI card slot for expandability, whether it was IO or whatever.
yeah.
And for the price of the Cube, you could have just got a full blown tower. And although it looked cool, it didn't make too much sense.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, that's right.
So yeah, I'm not seeing the actual video on my.
They're still very expensive to buy here, so I don't have one yet. But I
Very
plan.
expensive to ship to you.
Yes.
I was going to say, very expensive either way,
Yes.
Bruce. The next thing, July 21st in 1999, the iBook clamshell is introduced. And I think, Steve, you have a few of those, don't you?
I
few.
believe I have one of every model, almost every model.
Every
Something
color?
every at least every color. Yes, I was very content until Grudy shamed me and said, "Well, you know, there are actually two versions of the graphite." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he showed me. I'm like, "I need another."
And your wife was probably looking at like, I'm going to kill Grudy.
And then Grudy goes and gets
going that way.
Grudy goes and gets a prototype.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't got many prototypes. That's not me.
Well, Grudy doesn't have many either. He just lucked up into that one, I think.
Mm.
If you
I'm
guys
an older
ever,
prototype than he does, so
if you ever watch that video of him doing that, you're gonna laugh at that one so hard.
I remember him showing that at his house.
It's a prototype.
Heart rate. You're okay?
I think the clamshell's got to be up on the list for one of the most difficult computers to replace the hard drive.
Oh God, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's such a tease. You open up the keyboard and you're like, I can see the hard
You
drive.
see it. You
And then
see a
you're
bit
like,
of it.
"Oh."
I don't know what you're talking about. That guy on eBay that paints some weird colors just cuts a hole in it. And
Yeah, let me just get a lawnmower in here and like shear the top off. Oh, we're good.
Yep.
In order to get the hard drive out, you're going to need a screwdriver and a Dremel.
and then just leave the hole there.
There you go. And last but not least, on the news announcements, July 25th, 2019, Dana's first appearance on MacYak. So it's been a year since you actually made your first appearance. Actually, it'd be a year and a couple days, but you know, same thing.
And now,
Doesn't
regular.
feel a day longer than 11 months.
So
You've survived.
yes, and now he's a full-time member of MacYak. So there you go. See, you start on MacYak, and we can't get rid of some of these people. You know, I think Steve was the very first one. So that Steve
I'm
can
really
always
hard to
say,
get rid of.
and he's froze again.
We've lost him again.
I thought he was just soaking in all of the.
Yeah, I thought he was too because he's that moved it a lot.
Oh wait, I can hear Steve. Hold on,
I can hear him,
I
but
just can't see him.
All right, hold on.
Steve, you there?
Oh,
Nope, he's gone. Oh man,
Yeah.
Steve's gonna have
We'll
some.
get away sometime.
And he's back.
there it is.
I think the USB hub has more sensitivity to power than the tower does.
Ah, okay. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to our first topic of the evening. Last week we did a freestyle MacYak where we had no topics. We didn't come up with any topics. We just basically freestyled it the whole night. Want to know if you guys that watched it last week, especially the fans out there, if you like that or not, because we may do that a little more often. I think we've only done it like 2 or 3 times since we've done MacYak, but I kind of like it when we do that sometimes.
Yeah, I think every time we do it, we enjoy it ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I felt like it flowed pretty well. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like we don't have topics to discuss. It's just we just pull them out of thin air.
Well, we just to be honest with you, we all got lazy that week and we're like, let's do freestyle it.
No, you planned it out for years in advance. Frank.
And I think what we decided we might try it, once a month or something like that, or once every couple of months,
Yeah.
just to change it up.
I think once
And
every
everyone
couple
saying
months
that they
should be
felt
good.
included. How about that?
Yep.
That's nice.
There's generally positive feedback in the chat there about it. So
Yeah,
that's
End
good.
of the month unwinding of relaxed MacYak.
Oh, I like that.
What-
Macintosh Librarian. We felt like we were a part of it too.
Well, yeah, because we were actually reading a lot more of the chat. I think a lot of us were talking to each other and we're not paying a lot of attention to the chat. I mean, I do pay attention to it. I know Steve does. And I think Jay does a lot of paying attention to the chat. So, because you'll see those guys in there, chatting with them. Like I see Mac 84 in there, saying I'm not going to get sleepy now. So, there we go. And it's the future of Bruce.
Yeah. Brock likes to mention that quite regularly.
Yeah.
You just need to be reminded. That's all.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. That I'm in the future.
Yes.
Yeah, it's Friday morning here, everyone.
So why don't we ever get any good future tips from you there, Bruce?
Got to
A
ask
lot
for
of
future
numbers.
tips.
Well, you're a day ahead of
Sports
us,
figures.
man. You should know. Yeah, sports games. Hey, well, who's going to win this game?
Yeah, sure.
Great
That's
sports almanac.
Bruce's YouTube side hustle there. His predictions. I want to see him decked out in like a funny suit with a hat, and he's just like,
Yeah.
You hold up a computer board next to you. Capacitors will leak soon.
No, he needs that. He needs the flux capacitor.
Yes.
That's the one.
Oh,
I
there
want
we
to
go.
see you recap a flux capacitor.
That's why he's saving all those old caps. He's
That's
gonna
kind of
build
what we're doing recapping. One of the two main things we use are flux and capacitors.
capacitors.
Yeah.
That's the secret. That's the
Well,
simple-
that's
There you go.
probably how they came up with the name flux capacitor in Back to the Future.
I
they
mean,
just-
bunch of dorks writing sci-fi stuff. What else are you gonna get?
Exactly.
Right.
So there you go. So yeah, Bruce is going to have to do a flux capacitor recap episode.
Yeah, sure, that'll be interesting. My local electronics store actually do have a flux capacitor on their, on their online store. So.
Oh yeah, I've seen it before. Yeah, it's actually there. They actually talks about don't use this after 88 miles an hour. It says and
That's
Yes,
great.
I'll put a link to it in the chat.
yeah,
so that-
I forgot that
Yeah.
that's actually on there.
Mount that on one
Remember,
of the like
it's
XCs or something on the
$200,000
back of it.
is their list price.
Oh, is it?
It'll exp-
I'll be
well,
actually
you could go
surprised
back
if
in
somebody
time and
does.
pay for it.
Yeah, if somebody actually does submit the funds to buy one.
Yeah, what do you end up with? Oh, it's out of stock.
Oh,
Of course.
yeah.
Well,
But
go
they're
back
gonna be
in
like,
time to when it
Do
was
I
in
really
stock.
want to give up this $200,000 or say it's out of
It's in the
stock?
past right now.
Well, you get 10% off if you join now.
Yeah.
Man.
Designed to work hand in hand with a small nuclear reactor.
I like how they have bulk pricing there.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've even got a data sheet on it, so that's quite good.
Yeah.
Due back in stock October 26th.
So you would need to buy that data sheet if you're gonna recap it.
Warranty 1955 months. That's creative. I like
Yeah.
that.
Oh, that's fun.
All right. So we just went on a
Don't
free.
give the power consumption information, the 1.21 gigawatts.
Yeah.
Which, of course, is one of the classic things from the show. Isn't that a mispronunciation? Isn't it gigawatts?
Gigawatt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. All
The
right.
hell is a gigawatt?
Exactly. All right. So I think we free balled enough here, so we can. Yeah.
I've been freeballing.
Yeah.
Okay. That explains
Yeah.
everything.
Go. We could go a
Not
little
the
bit.
show I signed up for.
Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about topic number 2, and I'm going to throw it over to Steve. Steve is on a mission.
Oh boy, I've been on a mission since I can't even remember the actual date. It's pretty bad. But so for those of you who've put up with me for so long, you've understood that I've been sort of knee deep and neck deep now in this Macintosh clones business since late 2017. So I had the goal to think I could finish up and make a nice video by the end of 2018 or so. It's not 2018 anymore. So I've been
2
doing some
years later.
doing some fancy book learning here, and there's a bunch of stuff I've been looking through, old magazines and such, and so essentially what I've actually accomplished was getting a bunch of notes just written there, and just organizing my thoughts and things. And the trouble with this is you start reading one thing, and then you get a little hint of, oh wait, there was something that happened in 1993. And you go to look that up, and they're like, oh wait, there's something that happened in 1992. And then like, sure enough, you're back to like the Apple II days, and you're like, wait a second, what happened here? So I thought, well, I've been doing this for so long, I might as well be thorough. So I've been on a hunt and going down a rabbit hole to trying to find out more information here. What I did do, and if you didn't see it on Twitter or Instagram, I did a sort of a call for photos. So anybody who has a Macintosh clone in their possession, I would love to show some photos of your setups or the machines or whatever you have there. Because what's cool is there are so many out there. I only have two. I don't have any fancy ones by Daystar or Motorola or anything. And I just have pretty much low-end models. But there were some beasts of machines out there that were made during the 90s during this era. So obviously some of you have probably on the same groups I'm on and such like that. But if you do have any photos that you'd like to submit that you have of a Macintosh clone, I don't care what condition it's in, a photo's a photo. You have any videos, that's cool too. I'm pasting my email address into the chat. You could send me an email there, and that would be very much appreciated. But so far, I have episode 1's script pretty much ready to go. The conundrum now is, do I keep it at its very long length or do I split it in two? So there's sort of a math problem now that I have to figure out.
So you're saying part 1 might need to be split into two?
Part 1 might need...
Okay, so it would be part 0.5.
Yeah. Do people in the chat prefer one long 37-minute video?
There's
or
37's fine.
I don't know if you could hear that, but that's
Yeah,
mine
fine.
now.
Oh, I heard that.
That was mine.
Yeah, I heard it.
Well,
Yes, I mean, it's funny because from an analytical standpoint, you're going to go, oh, well, let me look at my YouTube analytics. And like, oh, here's the retention bar. But it's like, that doesn't mean anything because someone is either interested in the topic or they're not, So it's roughly, speaking and reading the parts, it's roughly a longer bit. But I must say that this is just a part 1. So this doesn't even cover some things that there'll eventually be more. So there's about 3 or 4 videos in the works here. And it's a big undertaking. And I probably would have not have done it if I understood how much of a rabbit hole I would have dug myself into here. But it is exciting. And it's a lot of things that I'm actually learning that I have not seen anywhere else. Even every Mac doesn't have some of these things listed for good reason, which I get into in the video. But they're very neat, and it's very interesting to just read about some of the stuff that these companies thought they could get away with.
Well, I could probably see every Mac not because of being so many different ones out there. I mean, like you just said, it's just like everybody was making them at the time,
Yeah, and there was later in the game, just before Jobs came back, there was sub-licensing going on. So you had, Motorola sub-licensing to a company in China or Taiwan or Japan or whatever. And, so they were shipping parts to those companies and maybe had a different name, but it was the same part from Motorola that was in their own systems too. So you get very muddied details here, and especially the way people like to write things. Sometimes it's very colorful language and it's very, entertaining to read. But then you're like, wait, did that actually come out before this or whatever? So you're like looking up old newspaper scans and stuff like that. So it's fun times. But that's currently the stuff that I'm neck deep in right now. But I hope to have something soon.
You did a bit of a broad summary of the whole situation as a Patreon video, I think, did you not?
Yep, that is correct.
Yep. So, which I've watched and is absolutely fascinating. It's a sign of obviously a sign of things to come. So obviously, folks, if you want to see that video, get a bit of an idea, you just have to go and become a patron. A Patreon. For
I
Steve.
have not watched it yet, Steve, but I am a patron, so I have to go watch it.
And I'll spam the link in the chat as the kids say. So if anyone's feeling like they need to watch that, feel free to do so. And on there is also the draft I did in 2019 of January.
There's a good one.
A video. Oh yeah, I hear that. There was a video that I did of rough cut.
Steve, why'd you throw your storm here?
I don't know. I just chucked it. But what's interesting is the points I made to Bruce and everything. That was stuff that I read about, but reading a lot of computer history books. These I've had since I was a kid, so I've been a dork for a while. But just going through these and you find just little tidbits that are just so interesting, and that just leads you down to the next path.
Come on,
so
Steve. You've been a dork your whole life. Come on.
Exactly. I have a shirt. I have a shirt, and I found a photo of me wearing it, and it says, "I'm a high-tech baby. Follow my leads." So I think I was cursed from birth there, but I'll do my best to live up to that. But
and as I have mentioned to Steve several times before, I had about a dozen clones once upon a time, and I gave them all away because I'm an idiot.
Otherwise, Bruce would be like strutting around in 20 minutes of my video going, look at
Oh,
these.
I would have had so many good photos because I had all different types. I had Daystar, I had power computing, and I had one other. I can't remember what the other one was.
Oh,
Maybe a Motorola. I had single processor ones. I had dual processor ones. Sorry.
Bruce went down the rabbit hole trying to look at the photos that he had, and you see them like in the very corner of some of these pictures, and he's like, "Oh, if I turned."
Yeah, just turn the camera just a little bit, you would have seen all of them in a row.
That's when that flux capacitor comes into play.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
All right. Anything else on that, Steve?
No, just if you have any photos, feel free to send them in. And if you don't, feel free to just watch me on Twitter. There's been a bunch of people sending them in, so they're fun to watch either way. So.
Well, I'm looking at my window right now. And I'm watching the rain I mean, it is just slamming against my window, the rain right now. So it is storming here.
You're getting good noise cancellation off your headphones.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's the plus about it.
I just saw that lightning.
Oh,
Wow.
did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your window just turned white for a second.
Yep, that's the lightning. And my dogs are probably going nuts right now. Oh yeah, they're probably cuddling with their mom right now. So, anyways, all right.
Quick hello to Jay in the chat there.
Jay's in the chat.
That's what Jay's the one making it rain.
Yeah. So, all right.
He's Dutch. He's not Norwegian.
Yeah. All right. So, next topic tonight. We've talked before about what our favorite Mac we have owned. Now, let's do our least favorite Mac. What is your least favorite Mac? And Rocky, I'm going to start with you.
All right. Well, I have to say my least favorite Mac is, oh man, that's a tough one because there's so many that I don't like.
What's on the very bottom of that list?
The trash can. But I guess one that I've owned would have to be actually I hate to say it, I liked it a lot, but I would have to say the 2012 iMac. No, it was a 2013 or 14. It was in that model year range. That was my least favorite, even though it was a very capable iMac. Because Apple had this horrendous idea to design the power supply in such a way that it was extremely sensitive to any kind of power flux, and it would hose the power supply and hose the whole computer, and you had to pop it open. It was one of those before you had the easy open, well, after the easy open, excuse me. It was one of, it's a horrendous design. You have to clean
anything 2012 and up is crap.
Is that the one where they sealed the screen to the back?
It's the thinner, the even thinner Macs, because the 2011 and below was the
you could open
the thick ones. Yeah, they had the CD.
Yeah, my friend has a 2013, and at work we were just talking, and they were like, "Oh, I have it's running slow," and I had them do a test, and it was the hard drive that was failing. I'm like, "Oh yeah, you can just rip that open, put a new drive in," and I'm looking it up. I'm like, what is this adhesive? Like, what do you? Oh my gosh!
Yeah, it's horrendous.
I don't blame you there, Rocky.
Yep. Yeah. All right. So, how about you there, Bruce? What is your least favorite Mac?
I've been thinking about this one for a little while, and it's. Are we talking about of all time?
Well, that you've
that you've owned.
One
that you've owned.
I mean, because obviously I own a lot of sort of vintage Macs now.
That's why you have a big selection.
Yeah.
Was that a cat going up your wall?
I think it just went. I think a cat just went up. Yeah.
I was like, I just saw something go up.
It's one of those Australian flying cats.
Hold on, I'll get her down for you.
I mean, the funny thing is that there are Macs that I like having in my collection, but that I might have a huge issue with them. So just take, for example, something like the Color Classic, which I love, is obscenely underpowered. There are things I like about it. I like the way you can open it up and get the logic board and the analog board out quite easily. I think there's some nice bits of design in that. But using one is just painful. I mean, even at the time, one of the first things that people said about them was that they were underpowered. So there's something like that where I kind of think, that's terrible Mac. But at the same time, I kind of like them. They're kind of cute. I mean, I think probably I've got a G4 Mini, I think, and I think that's probably the least used Mac I have. I think I don't know. I can't even ever be bothered to switch it on. So to some extent, I suppose that might take the cake.
Do you ever have a like an Apple Share server set up, Bruce? Because
no,
that doesn't make a bad Apple Share server. You put Tiger on it.
It's probably not
Apple
a bad
Talk,
idea. That.
I use mine.
Actually,
I use my G4 Mini for iTunes home sharing.
Okay.
Works
All
pretty
right,
well
this
for
is
that.
good. I've now got a reason. I've got a reason.
There you go.
The Apple Share server, I think.
And there's the cat.
The cat just jumped straight down.
Yeah.
Not on the PowerBook, no.
Oh, it's the G4 power over there.
Bruce is like, I'll be back.
I probably have so many Macs that I have some sort of issue with, but at the same time, I'm still kind of happy to own them. So I don't know. It's when you're a collector, it's kind of trying to pick the worst one. Is like, well, I can point out faults on these things, but it's very hard for me to actually say, if we're talking about, Macs that I don't know, I don't want in my collection. I mean, there's not many. I'm quite happy to have few. I mean, the Macintosh 2VI, again, ridiculously underpowered, but I still like having one. So,
well, that's because you're a collector, but
exactly
there's a difference between having a collection of old Macs versus what was your least favorite to actually use.
I mean, I bought a MacBook, I guess probably about 2007, something like that. One of the white plastic ones.
Oh, that's your problem.
And I can't remember what year model it was, but it was the first laptop I think I'd ever owned, or certainly the first, more modern. I think I might have had a vintage one tucked away, an old G3 or something that was already old when I got it. And to some extent, I really liked it because it was the first usable laptop that I had, one that I could actually use for work, and it was powerful enough to do things that I wanted to do on it. So I really did like that. But if we want to look at those, again, sort of retrospectively, I mean, they're terrible. I mean, the plastic falling apart on them, the top cases continually fail on them. They are just plagued with problems. So in that regard, I guess. They're probably, they're probably my least favorite. If someone gave me one, I shouldn't say that. We got one on a giveaway.
I actually have two of them.
No, we're giving away a good one.
I have two of them actually.
There's so much resin in there that thing won't fall apart. I mean,
well, the one I'm giving away actually has a brand new battery in it, so it has, I think, maybe 7 or 8 cycles on it, so it's not that bad. I mean, I bought it the battery brand new. I repasted the CPU. I cleaned it out completely. I think that's the one that Rocky sent me from his friend.
I think.
Yeah. That his friend had got a couple of them, so I took it, one of them, bought it, and Rocky sent it to me, and then I got one from Jay, and I don't remember which one's which. So, but they were both in really good shape. They were both had real good screens on it, and they both work great. I mean, one has a SSD in it, the other has a spinner in it. That's the only difference between the two.
And those machines, even though obviously they have their palm rest issues and stuff like that, I absolutely love that was one of the first machines, I think, where Apple was like, oh yeah, you can just rip out the hard drive and replace the memory, easy peasy. I mean, you swap out the hard drive on that, it takes you. I mean, how fast could you turn a screwdriver? You 3 screws, you rip out the little L bracket, and it's right there with the pull tab, and you just rip it out. I mean, I worked on so many of those at the time. I had bought a bunch of parts for them. Some of them had cracked screens, some of them didn't, and I was able to like build 1 or 2 working models out of this. This is probably 2008 or 2009, so they weren't that old.
Yeah.
And I was just thrilled to pieces because they were such a joy to work on. And this was coming from working on iBook G3s, where it was like terrible to get into this stupid machine. And this was like, oh, just memory up, boop, there we go.
Yep.
So, but yeah, no, they do have the tendency to be a little brittle these days in the plastic. But there's tons of them out there, so you got your pick of the litter.
Yep. All right, so now we'll go to Steve. What is your least favorite Mac and why?
Oh boy. So I had to think about this, but one of the experiences that I had not too long ago was I got a bunch of the pizza box Macs. So, you know, the LCs, the LC2s, the LC3s, the Quadra 605s, and a bunch. And although they're very neat machines, the LC and the LC2, just the whole design of having a 32-bit processor on a 16-bit bus, just so it wouldn't compete with, you know, the rest of the models in your product line, was such an Apple move. And I love the form factor of the machine. I love how easy it is to open it up. I love the LC3, but the LC and the LC2 are just, they're just, if it was a horse race, the horse has a few legs missing, and it's just no matter what you do, you're gonna lose there. So,
when you consider that the original Mac LC, because a couple of episodes we did the sort of special on the LC series, and I mean, but when you consider the original LC had the 68020 CPU on it, running at, I think it was the same clock speed as the Mac 2. And what the Mac 2 came out in, what, 87, I think, something like that. Now we've got the LC that's come out, and here's this LC running slower than the Mac 2 from 1987, whatever year it was. And you just sort of think, it's just a little bit mean, isn't it?
Yeah. You could buy a used 2SI or whatever, and you were probably better off because you had the capability to have a faster CPU, you had better expansion slots and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But it was, that's just like, you know, it's up there with the Macintosh TV. I love the look of it. I love the what they were going for there. But like the 8 megabyte of memory ceiling limit, you know, stuff like that is just, you know, typical early 1990s Apple. And it's really silly because, you know, people today are complaining, oh, you know, the Mac Mini has a slower processor than. I'm like, no. Look at the LC. Look at the first and the second LC. Those are a whole different story.
Yep.
And didn't the Macintosh TV, you couldn't play the TV while you were working on the computer. It was either a computer or a TV. It's not like you could watch TV in a little window or something.
I mean, because that thing was, you know, the Macintosh TV was the same 68030 CPU, and it was, you know, 32 megahertz, but it was slower than the LC3 at 25 megahertz, because it was the same 16, you know, megahertz bus or whatever that those Performas had. So it was just, you know, again, it was designed by Apple not to compete with other machines, and the thing looks really cool. But coupled with that and the ability, you could capture stills from TV, which is fine. But unlike the later Power Macs, you couldn't, you know, record any video or stuff like that. So again, maybe a little forward thinking. But, you know, a little. I think low end Mac used to have a term, road apples. I mean, that's pretty much, I think, what we're describing here.
All right, Dana, how about you? What's your least favorite Mac?
Well, it's funny that we started talking about the Macintosh TV because that's the one that I actually chose as far as being ones that I own. I love the thing. It looks so cool, but it is useless, completely useless. It has a low RAM ceiling. Was it 8 megabytes, something like that? The tuner card. The tuner card is absolutely terrible to get recapped. It's just like, if you think the LC board is bad, I guess these tuner cards are just notorious for being.
There must be at least 4 caps.
I've done one LC tuner card, and it's not just a matter of lots of caps and everything, but the board itself is actually really, really flimsy. So it comes apart as you're actually, if it's had some leakage on it, the board itself on the inside the tuner actually comes apart. You know, when you're trying to get the old caps off, and I had to go in and build, you know, replace traces and all sorts of things. And I gave it back to the customer. I said, look, at the end of the day, I've done all this work on it, but I can't test it because no one's broadcasting in this anymore.
Yeah,
so
right.
I've got no idea if it's working.
Well, the only way you can test is plug it into a VCR, but who keeps one of those around anymore?
Yeah, that's right. So I sent it back with all care taken, but it might work, might not. I don't know what you can plan for it.
As far as my least favorite Mac overall, it's pretty much any of the Performas. You take your pick. Especially, now I will say, my best friend and I were roommates for about 3 years, and he had a Performa 6300 series. I don't remember which one of the 1,000 that it was.
PowerPC one, yeah.
Yeah, and it was so underpowered. It was slow. I think it was like a 75 megahertz 603E, which, you know, the 603E was not a performer. Forgive the pun. But yeah, that thing I just couldn't stand. I had the Radius 81110 at the time, and I would much rather use it than that Performa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Performa was a few years newer. So yeah, that was could not stand that machine.
Yep.
If he's watching, I'm sorry.
Yeah. All right, and last but not least, myself, and Jay has been begging for this one, and this is the one I picked out originally, is because it was the very first Mac I actually owned when I got back into Macs, and it was the MacBook Air.
Which one?
I had the second generation one.
11 or 13?
11. No, actually, no, 13 inch. 13 inch, but it was a 2000. What was it? 2011, I think. Yeah, 2011 model. It sucked. Although running Snow Leopard on it, it was good. But they upgraded it all the way to, I think, past Mountain Lion. I think you could actually put El Cap on it if I remember correctly. I don't remember because I think I sold it before then. But that
2011s can go to actually 10, 13.
Yeah. So, but I would not recommend it going. I mean, even Mountain Lion struggled on it because it had 4 gigabytes of memory. The video card on it was just horrendous. I don't even remember what video it had on it, but it was just the most horrible Mac I have ever owned. Okay, and if I see one coming through recycle at Best Buy, I will let it go. Because that's
let me have it. I'll buy it.
I'll have it.
I want one.
I would actually like
save one for me.
11 inches. I always liked that very small form factor of the 11 inch. Now the original Core Duo and Core 2 Duo ones rather were plagued with issues. I wouldn't touch one of those.
But the 11 inch,
but I would
is just.
I would take like a 2015 11 inch model.
But the 11 inches,
if you're giving it away,
like not a lot of screen real estate there.
Yeah, but if it's just that's my travel laptops, shove it in a bag for typing,
2011, 2010 or 2011, I can't remember. 11 inch MacBook Air that I picked up for very cheap and repaired it. It was busted and I repaired it. And that's kind of one of the problems with them. They do have a high failure rate. But I can fit that in the glove compartment of my car. And it has got me out of a pickle a couple of times when I've been away on holidays or away from a computer, doing things that I can't do on an iPad. I'm needing to actually launch a proper Mac OS app rather than sort of an iPhone or iPad app, and it's got me out of a real pickle a couple of times. It's been a very, very handy little thing to do. Do I want to edit video on it? No. But you can do a lot with it. I mean, you can browse the web, you can do your emails, I can write a little bit of code, I can jump onto the terminal and and sort of SSH something. They're a handy little thing.
But that's about all you could do. I mean, if you want to do real computing, I mean, I think the processor was like a 1.2 or 1.5 gigahertz processor.
Yeah, it's really slow.
Yeah.
The later ones. So my wife, I think it's a 2017 or 2018 model. She has a 13 inch, and we got it used. We didn't pay too much for it. It's actually a pretty good deal. But when we went to Japan last summer, that was the only machine we brought with us because we're not going to really be using the computer. But we thought, all right, we're checking into hotels. You might have to print out something, might have to do something that we can't translate on a phone or whatever. So that was what we brought. Now, I was actually surprised. I mean, I actually did some video editing on it. I was on a Shinkansen train that was like 3.5 hours or something coming back from Osaka, and I'm like, well, I want to do a video. Let's see how this works. And it wasn't too bad. I did put the video quality down to, I think it was either 720p or 1080p, down from whatever the original format on my phone was. And so there's a YouTube video I did that's like thrifting in Japan or something like that. And you know what? It wasn't too bad. There were some times where it was a little bit warm, obviously, but it was plugged into the wall outlet. I wasn't on battery power or anything, so it handled itself quite well. But I will say that I had a friend, I still have a friend, whose partner worked for Apple, and they had one of the pre-production MacBook Airs before they were actually out, and there was a bit of a problem with the shielding around the hard drive, and a magnet got a little bit too close to the computer, and poof went all the data. So obviously it was a pre-production model. Obviously there were some things that were just not taken care of at that stage in production. But I just remember them being very angry at the design of the computer for this little one. Remember, it was a 1.8 inch, like an
It was an iPod hard drive. Yeah, I was going to say that's the only way they could fit in there. And it was slow. I mean, I'm talking about
those hard drives are fine for loading MP3s, and that's it.
Well,
I mean, there were, if you were to go out and buy the cheap version of the MacBook Air, I can't remember which year it was. There was one you could buy that had 2 gigabytes of RAM in it, unupgradable, and they're just useless.
Well, nothing's
they're just absolutely useless.
Nothing's upgradable on it except for one thing, and the only good thing about the MacBook Air was you could upgrade the SSD in it. Okay. Yeah. Because it was a
up until a certain year.
Yeah, up until I think 2017 or something like that. But but the ones I had replaceable SSD, so you could actually buy a new SSD. In fact, there was companies that actually made SSD upgrade kits, and they would actually give you a little container to put your used SSD, so you could use it as an external drive.
That's the only reason I got the model I got for my wife. Is it was one of the ones, I think one of the last ones that had the SSD on a socket. So I said, it's only, 256 gigs or whatever. I'm like, look, it's kind of tiny, but in a few years, if you fill that up, which probably won't, I'll put a new one in there, and it's fast enough for your
purposes.
Now,
I mean, one of the things I did like about my MacBook Air, and I did buy this, was the little SD card that you could put a micro SD card, and it was flush, and you always had extra storage on it built into it, which was it was perfect. I love that part about it.
Oh yeah, because if you look at the original MacBook Air and you look at the price with the SSD, it had another $1,000 to the price. It was absolutely ridiculous, which is why most people stuck with the 1.8 inch iPod.
But you could put a micro SD in there with that little flush card thing and keep it in there all the time, and you never even knew it was there, and it was just an extra hard drive on your computer. It was slower because micro SDs are not that fast. Plus that SD card slot was not that fast.
Yeah, it's not an SDXD or whatever.
Exactly. Plus
but that's pretty neat.
Yeah. Plus the USB ports were 2.0. They weren't 3.1, so that was still slow. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that Apple cut back on in the design of that thing, and they weren't cheap. I mean, I think the lowest price one started at $1,000. So I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I would ever buy a new one, but if you think of them as
I did
an iPad that, if you think of them as an iPad that runs OS X apps, that's OS 10 apps. That's how I think of them. I don't really think of them as a full-blown production computer. They're very, very small, very, very portable, and as I say, I mean, with the one that I got, I paid very little for it because it was broken, and then I fixed it. So that was a very, very inexpensive investment. So yeah, I mean, I think they have their place. I mean, I get all of the issues and complaints with them, but I still think they can be a really handy little Mac to have around.
That was my least favorite, though, is what I'm saying.
I get that totally, but I'm just trying to tell you you're wrong. That's all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Bruce is like, that's my baby. It's not ugly.
What's funny is I put my iMac G4 above the MacBook Air. That's how much I dislike. So, all right, guys. So,
fair enough.
A good transition into our next topic here is, since we've had our least favorite, let's talk about what our favorite Mac-related project we've done or been a part of and why. And we'll start in the same order we went with before, and start with Rocky.
Oh my God.
Well, it's your topic.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what my favorite Mac-related project was, because I've had quite a few. Actually, I have to say, thinking back on it, my favorite Mac-related project is when I sat down and I started working on converting, like PCI at the time, graphics cards that were for a PC, into being used on a Mac. And what sparked that was I had a 6500 250 and I put a Voodoo 3 into it. And that Voodoo 3 was native. You could actually run that in a Mac or a PC, and I happened to get a hold of it for free. And that sparked me because I had a little Radeon 7000 PCI card sitting around. I was like, okay, it's a PC. And I started doing some homework back then, and I found out I could flash that, and I got it flashed. But that card was awesome. Put it in there. I mean, that wound up being the card that's still in my G3 blue and white, actually. So that sparked a huge project to keep doing that, and I wound up getting to the point where in that project, because it was a series of different cards that I kept trying different ones, keep working on. I figured out the F coding in the firmware and stuff like that. I mean, it's the open, what's it called? The open firm, whatever it is. It's, there's a lot you have to do sometimes to make things work, or to tinker with them, or to get them to do what you want them to do. And the end of that project, the culmination of it, was actually getting my 4200 AGP card in my Quicksilver and making that run as a 4600, because it was actually a 4600 rebranded and cheapified or whatever. It was still, it was still basically a 4600. It was just actually, it had the proper cooling and everything. It was just a matter of they branded it 4200 because that was at the later end of its life. Mm-hmm. And that's when they were just making them all 4200s. So I wound up getting that into my G4. And yeah, that was my favorite project. That was a lot of fun.
Cool. All right, Bruce.
Mine's obviously going to be vintage related because it's me. I think probably, obviously, as you know, I repair a lot of Macs, but there was probably one, and it was a relatively minor repair, but it was one that was extremely satisfying, and it was in the early days of me working on these Macs. Obviously I'm doing a lot more now, but I managed to get hold of a Macintosh 512K. I had been after a Mac that didn't have any writing on the front, so either a 128K or a 512K. And it actually turns out this one had its ROMs upgraded to a 512KE, so it had an 800K floppy drive in it as well. Yeah, and I bought that from wherever, I can't remember. It wasn't particularly cheap, but it was all right, and it was sold as dead. Doesn't work. Power it on, nothing. Completely and totally dead. And so anyhow, I thought, I'm going to have a go at fixing this, and then I opened it up, and there's a known fault on those old 128K, 512K, and Mac Plus power supplies, with some of the resistors in the power supply getting really, really hot and failing. And on the international board, it's R55. It's a different one. I think it might be 52 on the US board, but it's R55, and it's a common weak point. And I thought, you know what, may as well just try it. So hadn't done any diagnostics, hadn't taken any tests. I didn't do any power tests or anything like that. No multimeter anywhere. I just, grabbed my soldering iron, whipped off R55. I grabbed a replacement resistor, put that on instead, fired it up, bang, away she went. Worked beautifully. Went to go see if I could start it up. All I could find was a System 6.05 disc on an 800K, and I put that in there. As I put it in, I thought to myself, what am I doing? This is a 400K computer. It's just going to spit it straight back out again. And then sure enough, boom, up came the little happy Mac, and it launched straight into System 605. And I'm like, how is this even possible for a 512K? What's going on here? And that was when I then started investigating and finding out that it had been upgraded to a 512K at some stage in its life. And that whole experience was just so unbelievably satisfying at the time, that it will, even though I've done way more complex repairs these days, that was just, it was a huge moment that, here I bought this thing that was broken, and now I'm, launching into an operating system. So that's probably one of my favorites.
That's awesome.
Yep. Mm-hmm. All right, Steve, how about you?
So back in the day, this is probably 2002, 2003, sometime along then. I had my Lime, Key Lime clamshell iBook G3 model, and me and my dad used to go to flea markets a lot, and there was this one flea market that we always used to frequent, And I would find Apple stuff there once in a while, but it was always like the old stuff. It was always broken or whatever. So this guy had an iBook, and it was an iBook G3 Snow, one of the dual USB white models. And I think I think the screen was broken. There was something that was obvious that was wrong with it. And I remember the guy wanted 100 or something for it. And so I kept haggling. I think I had $50 on me. And I don't know how, but I eventually haggled it down to here's $50. And he had to go over and talk to the other guy who probably owned the thing and back and forth. And I got it for $50. But the problem was that so the screen was damaged. I ended up getting a screen off eBay. And this is really my first attempt to try and fix the thing. And I fixed, I think, an old PowerBook 500 series. I fixed a broken screen in it before, but this is my first time trying to fix a more modern computer. So I lifted up the keyboard, and I noticed there was the little tray that the airport card sits on was missing. So me thinking, oh, I'll just go to the Apple store, and they were one that just opened up that was maybe 45 minutes away or so. And I don't know, I guess we were already going to there anyway, so I brought it with me. You didn't need an appointment for the Genius Bar. You just walked up, it was a different time. And the guy looked at it, and he's like, well, you're missing some parts here, and, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, but it's still under Apple Care, which it was. And he's like, yeah, but we can't fix it for you. You're going to need the parts here. If you don't have that, it's out of warranty. It's going to be like $700, $800 to fix. Something ridiculous. And so I'm like, well, all right, whatever. So I went home, I got the screen, and that was really one of my first experiences of putting it all together. And that's why I still have a box of iBook G3 parts, because I think I got some guy who didn't know what he had and he just wanted to get rid of them. And I was able to build a working iBook dual USB out of it. It was a pretty slick 500 megahertz machine, had a DVD-ROM in there, so it became, our family's computer. I have some brothers, so it was shared around. But it was great to have this secondary little Mac laptop. Nobody had a laptop besides me in the family. So it was nice to have this, and I felt like such a sense of accomplishment. Like I got this broken thing for $50, and I was able to clean it up, and at that time it was still usable. It had Wi-Fi in there. It was not a bad machine, and I still have it somewhere. I remember the way I know this from the other iBooks that I have is while I had the screen open, I put a piece of black paper or something over the Apple logo. So instead of a white Apple logo, it's a black Apple logo on the white iBook. So that's still floating around somewhere, and I think it's one of my dual booting machines with 9 and 10. But that was a very good thing that I was able to accomplish here, and I think that probably set me down the path like that today.
And they're a nice looking machine, those ones too, I think.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I love my Keyline, but I was so jealous when those came out because they had 2 USB ports, they had a combo drive, and they had a microphone. And I'm like, look at this antique I have, 800 by 600 resolution.
They're the ones with the sticky keyboards, yeah?
The smelly keyboards, yes.
Yeah.
All right, Dana, how about you?
Well, the only real projects I can think of that popped to mind are pretty much self-serving. Like, it's not like I helped somebody build a computer lab or build a computer for them. It was all for me. As bad as that sounds, but the main one I think was when my first gen Mac Pro really started showing its age as far as being a daily driver for graphic design, for doing Photoshop work, stuff like that. And it was more due to the limitations of the software than anything else. And so I decided to get a 20, or I think it was a 2009, it's a 4.1 that I flashed up to 5.1. And so that's my daily driver now. And I was like, what am I going to do with the old one? And I decided to, at the time I was using a Mac Mini as my Plex server. And I said, this thing is expandable as crap, and it doesn't matter what OS I'm running on it. So I got an eSATA card. I have an, what do you call it? It's an IC dock. It's basically an external eSATA enclosure for hard drives, and that's where all my media is stored. And I actually won that in a raffle at a LAN party. And so I said, well, I'll just get this eSATA card from OWC. I think it was pretty cheap, and got a USB 3 card for it, and put a bunch of RAM in it. And it was all, really affordable. And the thing just works great as a Plex server. I mean, it's just I couldn't. The Mini had some limitations to it as far as processing power and bandwidth, even though it is an i5. Um, the Mac Pro is a dual CPU, 3 gigahertz. What are those 5365s? I think that's what I've upgraded it to. So it's got 8 cores, and it just does a wonderful job with it. And I think that's been my favorite project that I've worked on. Now I've got one coming up where I'm going to be putting. I got a free server cabinet from a company that was remodeling or something.
Ooh.
And this is a giant, like, HP full-size server cabinet. I mean, it's probably 7 feet tall, and they were just given away on Craigslist. They're like, we can't sell this thing. We're just going to give it away. So I went and brought it home. It's in my garage right now, and it's going to house at least one G5, the first gen Mac Pro, and possibly a second.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's also going to have all the drives, all the media enclosures, and it's going to sit in the closet of my upstairs bedroom that I've converted into an office. So it's I'm
That's
looking
cool.
forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would love to get a rack like that, but I would just fill it. That's a problem. I have to stop myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I already have one X.
And I decided I was going to get it, because if I ever did decide talk myself into getting an Xserve, that's where it would go.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's a good place to organize that stuff too.
I had 2 Xserves, and
Yeah.
I had to get rid of them before we moved out to Virginia because
Oh.
yeah. I did keep the Xserve RAID though. That did come with me. So
that's the
Now,
important
yeah.
part.
Do you have the RAID and an Xserve? Or
no, just the RAID.
now?
I have the RAID hooked up to my Mac Pro, so I have
okay.
a fiber card in my Mac Pro, so yeah,
Fancy.
I'm able to actually use it. Okay, so last but not least, myself, for my favorite project, basically was actually getting my 4,1 CMP, and since Jay's not here to say anything, it's his fault I got it because he
It was $150.
yeah, he found it. It was a place near me, and so I went and offered the guy. I didn't even think he was going to take the offer because I offered him. I said, "Would you take 150?" He goes, "Yeah." And I was like, "Okay." I said, I was like, "How fast can I get there before he changes his mind?" But not only did he give me that, but I also got a 17-inch PowerBook G4 as well with it. Now the PowerBook G4 had some issues with it, which I fixed up and everything. Like the CD drive cable was bad on it, so I had to replace that. I had to put a new hard drive in it because it didn't have a hard drive. Those IDE drives are hard to find, by the way. So I got one of those in there, and it works fine. And I have it sitting back here somewheres, and I power it on every now and then, play a game of Civilization on it, stuff like that. Now, the reason why I mentioned this one is because of all the stuff I've done on this $150 Classic Mac Pro. I've basically upgraded the video card. I'm running an RX 5700 XT in it, which is pretty much about the best you could put in it as far as AMD goes. It's really fast. I have not had any problems with it at all. It does hardware encoding, no problem at all. I've also upgraded the CPUs. It came with the 2.26 gigahertz CPUs. I upgraded it to the 3.01 5675s. And so I actually had to delid the ones that I got. So that was a fun project, delid. In fact, I have a video on my other channel that shows me, how to delid the CPUs the right way, not with a vice. I can't stand when somebody does a vice, but hey. Then I upgraded the memory. See what else have I done with this? I mean, this thing is pretty much. I pretty much got everything that I want done to it right now. I've got SSDs in it as far as my boot drives and stuff. Now I have spinners in here for storage drive, but for my boot drive it's an SSD and it boots up quick. So with that, I had a 2017 iMac that I actually sold because this thing was better. This actually became my daily driver versus my 2017 iMac because it just outperformed it in multi-core. So it was so much better. Now single core, my 2017 outperformed it no problem. But upgrading this thing, and I actually, I forgot too, I did do the Pixeless mod as well on this, and I actually got a video, a live video of me doing it on my other channel too. I did enjoy doing all the mods I did to this thing, and I think I've given this thing a few more years of life. It is running Catalina right now, but I am not running, and a lot of people will think that I'm running DOS Dude 1's Patcher. Nope. I am not running DOS Dude 1's Patcher because guess what else I'm doing? I'm running OpenCore on it. And OpenCore, you can upgrade this without using the patchers. You can actually run it like it's a native computer. So you don't have to worry about, a patched version of OS, of Mac OS. So that's the reason why.
Steve again.
So eBay says I could install an IDE, MSATA adapter, and a PowerBook G4. Huh. I'd like to see that. Yeah.
I've done it.
Yeah.
I've done it in mine. Yeah. Works.
I mean, I don't use it that much, so having the spinner in it's not gonna kill me. But did we lose Steve?
Those little adapters are tiny, so I can see.
Did we lose Steve?
Yeah, we did.
Yep.
He must have had another power outage because he's froze in time up there. So. But anyways, I think that is probably my best project, Mac related, that I've done so far is this Mac Pro. And I tell you what, this thing has been a true workhorse. I mean, right now doing the podcast on this, on the stream on this, I'm not even barely using maybe 20%, maybe 15% of my CPU's usage right now. I mean, I'm looking at my CPU usage, and it's rarely anything. I mean, my CPUs are running at 45 degrees and 41 degrees Celsius. So, I mean, they're cool. They're running cool. And a lot of people will probably say, well, why didn't you just leave the lids on it and use the washers on it? Well, that's not what the 4.1 was designed to be like. So guess what? I'm running it with delidded CPUs. And I think Jay did a test on this where the delidded CPUs actually do run cooler than the lidded ones. So,
Yeah.
One less
Mine are
medium in
running
the middle
at,
of it.
Exactly.
Mine are running at 51 and 46 right now.
I mean, I've always had.
And I don't even have the fans cranked.
I'm using TGP and or TPG, whatever that's called. And
TG Pro.
TG Pro, yeah. And it's like I said, I keep the fan curve a little bit higher on my CPUs and the North Bridge and everything, but it never gets that hot. So I do need to do the modification that Rocky did to his North Bridge because I still have the plastic retainers on it. So I want to do the screw mod on it. So Rocky, you need to make a video of that or do a write-up in MacYak. Do a write-up on the MacYak.com and put it on there so we can know how to do it. So there you go.
I definitely think, GT, that you get the award for, bang for your buck when it comes to your computer. If we talk about horsepower versus, money invested, that thing is, there's great investment.
I think the most expensive piece that I put on it was the video card.
Yeah.
But I think it's
probably costs more than the computer.
Yes. It costs like almost double what I paid for the computer.
Yes.
But it's worth it. It's a good investment. Plus, that card I can use in any other computer or whatever down the road. It's not like I'm gonna lose any functionality with it. So
True.
Anyways, but that's mine. So with that, I think we are going to move on to, guess what? It's game time.
Yeah.
It's our Eep and Quack game. All right, if you guys
would you like to play a game?
Okay, for all our new subscribers, out there, if you have not played this game with us, it's a pretty easy game to play. It's almost like Have You Ever? It's kind of like that, except the way we play it is Eep. you say EEP, EEP, if
Eep.
you have done what we're getting ready to say, or quack if you haven't.
Quack.
Okay? So the first one, let's see, who wrote these in here? So I'm going to let them talk.
Did.
Okay, go ahead,
You want
Rocky.
me to read
You go ahead and
them?
read
All
them.
right. All right. So the first one. Have you ever left your computer at home when you were rushing out the door and had to drive back home to retrieve it?
Eep.
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 Several times.
I left mine in a cafe once. I had to go back and get that.
Ooh, that's worse. That's
it was
worse.
still there. I tell you what, I walked back so fast when I realised I didn't have my laptop with me.
I can't say I've ever. Whenever I take my computer anywhere, it's usually to a LAN party. So if I forget it, then it's it's pretty noticeable. As far as a laptop, I don't think I've ever left my laptop behind. Phone, yes. Tablet, yes.
I've had plenty of times at my old job where I thought I had picked up the right laptop bag, but it was like my wife's bag, or if it was like a laptop bag I had that didn't have anything in it. And I get to the office, I sit down, and I go to reach the bag, and just that sinking feeling when you feel nothing's there, and I'm like, no.
Well, we got a lot of different differences in here, eeps and quacks. So a lot of differences there.
Leaving your laptop in an Uber.
Oh, an Uber.
Oh, man.
I have one better than that. My wife left her phone on the bus, so she was coming back from work. Left her phone on the bus, and she always has her volume low, and
she couldn't call it.
Well, we called it, just nobody would pick up because the volume was so low. So here she is in the passenger seat playing with Find My iPhone on my phone while I'm gunning down the highway trying to find out where this bus is. Thankfully, it was at the end of the service day for that bus. It's pouring raining out, and I'm, in I don't know where in New Jersey, just driving crazy. And finally, the bus stopped at, the NJ Transit depot, the bus depot. And nobody was around, obviously, because it's a bus depot and it's like 8, 9 o'clock at night. That's, of course, the first thing I wanted to do is when I get home is to go chase a bus in my car. And thankfully, she banged on the door. Somebody, answered. She explained, and they were able to find the phone. But it was like, you're so tired to get home from work, and you're like, the phone's on the bus. And you see the bus going down. Like, all right, get in the car. Let's go.
Let's go chase a bus.
Yeah.
All right. So next one, Rocky.
All right. So the next one is, have you ever thrown a Mac out the window?
That's sacrilegious, man.
Whack.
That is that.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Rocky has.
I'm going to
Yes, Eep.
quack, quack, quack.
Quack. I have never demonstrated
What?
I've thrown an LC out the window
When
from the
was
second
this?
floor.
When
It was
was
dead.
this?
It was
Oh, okay.
about 10 plus years ago. Yeah.
Okay, because if it was recent, I'm going to have a talk with you.
No, I had a stack of them. At the time.
Okay, hold on.
Those Macs you have are in an abusive situation.
Trina wants the question again. The question, Trina, was, have you ever thrown a Mac out the window?
Oh.
And I'll crack
Now,
it.
I've been tempted, very tempted at times.
Look at all the quacks
I've
here.
restrained
I don't think
myself.
anyone's eeped except for Rocky.
Oh, man.
There's
We need a single EAP
Yeah.
award to present to
An
you.
intervention.
I
there,
wait
yeah.
to see it.
Did
Intervention
you
award.
go out and retrieve it, or did you just leave it there?
Yeah,
No,
let's.
well, I mean, I had to clean it up. It was a disaster,
Oh.
but yeah, that's at the time when I had literally a tower of like 20 of them. Well, two
Now-
towers technically.
Now,
Which
was
model
it an
was it?
LC, an LC2, an LC3, an LC3 Plus? Answer
Yeah.
carefully.
I'll see
I can't remember exactly which one it was because I had a
Okay.
stack of both of them and none of them would boot, and it was extremely frustrating. And I was done with it, and I was like, "Fine, if you don't boot, screw you," and out the window.
Oh, dysfunctional goes. He almost
That-
smashed his
what-
SE
what-
today.
I'm glad the window was open.
Yeah,
Yeah.
otherwise it would have been bing poo.
Yeah.
Rocky goes down.
All right, Rocky, you're the only eep because I have not seen an eep in
Ah.
chat.
I suppose
Congratulations.
that's probably good to hear.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
I think the closest I came was back in the late 90s. I had two, and I still have these, but they're power computing towers, Power Center Pro 210s, and one of them, unbeknownst to me at the time, had a bad RAM module. And so it was constantly freezing, locking up, giving me all kinds of fits. And one day I was working on something and I was just about to save the project. I mean, I had been saving, but I finished it and I was about to save the project and locked right up, couldn't do anything. I shoved it across the table as hard as I could and just walked. I went home.
That reminds me of one. I got a Power Mac G3, and now I know why it was so cheap, dirt cheap at a computer show. A problem one, it was the blue and white models with the defective IDE chip on it, so that would just randomly corrupt data if you were using an IDE hard drive, which they shipped with. So my relatives had an eMac that had a faulty video chipset on the logic board, and Apple was under warranty, so they brought it to the store, but they had it for like months. It was like a ridiculous amount of time that they didn't have the machine, so they needed a computer in the meantime. So me trying to help, I said, I have this G3 tower, I could put enough RAM on it so you could actually browse the web, go on email. This is about 2004 or 2005 or so it was still serviceable to use one of those machines. I had that thing, I set up OS 10 on it, I installed some applications, I put Microsoft Office on it, getting them learning how to use it. We had to reboot it or something for a software update. I'm getting my code on. I'm ready to leave. And it boots up and it's like the flashing, question mark in the disk. And I'm like, but it was working. Like, what's going on here? And I put a CD in, the hard drive is detected, it's fine. But when I reboot it, something happened. It got corrupt because that stupid IDE chip that decided, nope, you've spent a few hours on this. Nah, we're gonna screw this up. So they had to go back to using a PC temporarily. That was the closest I came to being like, God, and it's in my garage, and I showed it on a live stream recently, but I have a piece of tape over it that said works ? And now I know why. I learned about that IDE chipset, but I had no idea at the time. I thought it was just out to get me.
All right, last one, Rocky, go ahead.
All right, so this last one, be honest. Have you ever intentionally broke a computer? Intentionally. It was fully working and you broke it. Eep.
Again,
it was a PC. Yeah, I was gonna say mine was a PC too. It wasn't a Mac. I can't.
It was in high school. It was in retaliation for two friends of mine beating up a poor performer. Which, look, that thing was a pile of crap probably. But they made a whole video in Windows Movie Maker. I still have it somewhere of them hitting hammer on it, and they wrote like Mac sucks on it and stuff like that. So I took offense to that. And me, with my iMovie skills, set up my brother's camcorder, got some PC from a recycling center, and I feel bad about it because it was my older brother's computer, and it was like running Windows 3.1. There was like nothing of value on it, and I just took it out in the yard and I'm hitting it with a shovel and beat it up pretty badly. I don't know if it worked afterwards. I think we tossed it, but I got in trouble nonetheless. But I think that's the only computer I intentionally harmed, and it was jealous.
It was jealousy.
I think I have to quack on that one. I have no recollection of ever intentionally destroying a computer.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, we won't be too hard on you if it was a PC there. That's okay. That's the reason why it's okay with Steve, because Steve did it to a PC, not a Mac.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure I have the video somewhere, but it's so dark that you can't even see what I'm doing. You just hear the clang of the shovel.
I would have loved Jay to have been here because his intentional harm of G4 CPUs is just.
Yeah, he's intentionally destroyed.
I'll have to get him to answer this one.
Grudy has intentionally destroyed a lot of machines. So yeah.
Yeah, I think he gets off on that. There's something about like a processor working correctly that he just can't have. He has to overclock it and just have it melt through the silicon. I mean, come on.
Him and
love you, Grudy.
Him and Colin Mister, the two that probably destroy more Macs.
Send Macintosh Protective Services after.
Yeah, I know.
Rudy actually sent me some pictures a while ago, just to me, and he said it's for an upcoming video, so I'm not going to spoil anything. But I will say, G4 and a rifle was involved.
Oh man.
Unsubscribe.
Unsubscribe. You heard it. Unsubscribe to Grudy's channel now.
Subscribe to me. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I'll give it a bath.
Well, I can say my experience with that makes it a definite eat for me is actually my G5. I took it apart, and in the process of taking apart, and this was a 2.5 gigahertz dual CPU from one of those LCS models, and I got a little gung ho and a little happy, and kind of was like, "Screw it!"
Yep.
I broke it.
Oh,
Well, at least you didn't get zapped like Ken did. You know.
It sounds a little bit accidental, though.
Yeah.
No, it was kind of intentional because I knew going into there, I'm like, this is definitely going to scratch the CPU board, and I'm definitely going to ruin it. But I think I can do this.
You had a good heart. You were trying. It's not your fault the patient died.
Right.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that was intentional. I would say that's accidental.
I think it was
The
pretty.
jury decides you're innocent.
Yes.
But speaking of G5,
I mean, one could argue
Well.
that Dana's recent experience with his computer using pliers, most people wouldn't use great big old pliers like that. So
He still has it right there. See.
you need to frame those and
I
have
know.
the background of your YouTube channel.
Yeah. With the picture.
Our founder. And it's pliers.
Yeah. Just pliers and CMP trays do not agree with Dana.
this is how I fix stuff.
Well, that's the reason why you got Dana does stuff, not Dana fixes stuff.
Right. Dana breaks stuff.
Yes, Dana breaks stuff. I'll subscribe.
All right, so we're getting close to the end of the show. We got a couple more things to go over here. So let's go ahead and start off with the Outback Wayback Machine, and I'll take it to Bruce.
Okay, so this is only the second time that we've done this this little segment. We'll see. Time will tell whether it keeps getting done again. But I focus on a particular sort of range of computers, not necessarily one specific computer, but something that was fairly big, or sort of an important moment for Apple, whether it be a good moment or a bad moment. Last time I did DLC. This time I am doing the often maligned G5 Tower. And the main reason why I'm doing this one is because there's a definite personal link for me. Now, I'm not going to go into huge amounts of details about the history of the G5, but I will tell a little bit about my history with the G5. And on 30th of September 2003, I took delivery of a brand spanking new G5 dual 2 gigahertz. It had 2.5 gigs of RAM, a 160 gigabyte hard drive, an ATI Radeon 9600, and a DVD burner, I think was the CD or DVD drive in there. And it cost me the paltry sum of 6,000 Australian dollars, which in today's money would probably be closer to 9, I would say, somewhere between 8 and 9, I would think. And it still, to this day, is the most expensive Mac I have ever bought. And I still have it. It's down here next to me. It came with, I think I've got the discs here. Here we go. These are the discs that came with it. It came with 10.27. So what is it? That's Jaguar. Obviously, this is a computer that could run Jaguar, Panther, Tiger, and then Leopard was the last operating system it would run. Of course, then before they transitioned over to Intel. The little additional software here that was it allowed you to install classic, OS 9 on it, and I think a trial of Microsoft Office. So it's not like you got a whole lot of extras with it, but that was better than nothing, I suppose. And it was, at the time, I was doing a lot of 3D illustration, so it was a really, really, sort of important thing to get a bit of horsepower. And a lot of the time, people as I say, if you're running a G5 these days, it's a bit of a joke about how much power they consume, or how loud the fans are, or sort of they're running hot, that sort of thing. Which of course they did. I mean, when you consider that essentially the design of the case was one great big heat sink to help dissipate the amount of heat that they generated. But I just want to put something into perspective for people about the G5, and that is just how unbelievably fast it was when it came out. When I first got this G5 and I started working on it, it was just unbelievable how quick it was. And as someone doing quite a lot of 3D illustration, I used to do, I worked for a company where we designed product labels. And what we used to do is we used to 3D generate those products with the labels on, so that we would simulate them on a store shelf or something like that. So when we were selling the concept of the design, the company could see, oh, this is what the product will look like on the shelf. And so I was doing quite a lot of that 3D illustration, and it just completely changed the way that I worked. I mean, it was just so unbelievably fast. I had at the time I had a 3D render farm down in my little shed here, and I had probably about 10 or so power computing clones, or sort of the old 604 CPU clones. And I had them each set up as a rendering station, so that when I would want to render a 3D image, it would just distribute them to all those 604 computers there, and then help me obviously render things a lot quicker. When I got the G5 could render a single frame of 3D in the background while I was working on it faster than the entire shed of 604 computers. So if I were to send one to the G5 and send one to those to distribute and get printed, get output by all of them, the G5 would finish well before them. So my render farm just suddenly became
useless.
Obsolete. And if we want to talk about power consumption, sure, the G5 used a fair bit of power, but it used a hell of a lot less than that entire 604 CPU.
Well,
that's for sure.
But okay, Bruce, and I've had a G5 for a while too, and when you talk about, people sit there talk about how loud they are and everything. I have never ever playing UT, because I play UT 2004 on mine. I have never ever had the fans crank up to where it sounded like a jet engine. I did when I first.
Only if it wasn't calibrated.
Exactly. I was just going to say that.
Only if they're not
when
calibrated.
I first.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, it would do it if it's failed. If if it's crashed or something like that, you go away, you come back, the computer's crashed, and the fans are going jet engine on you. But that was just the fail safe that the computer put in.
Or if you took the clear plastic shield out, it would automatically do it too, because there's a little switch in the bottom down there that it would go full throttle, on that. I know.
Yeah, no,
go ahead.
Totally. I never really felt they were a particularly. I mean, mine's going here at the moment. I can't hear it at all. Yeah, I mean, and then of course the other thing we have to think about is with the G5 is the design. Now that's the design that again got carried on to the Mac, Mac Pro, right up until 2012. So this is a design that sort of went from 2003 to 2012. So it's 9 years of a design. Now we can get very blasé about that design now, but when that G5 came out, sorry, I wrote on the front of this magazine a little bit. That's all my doodles up there. But when that G5 first came out with that, that aluminium, case, it was absolutely amazing. I mean, they were just the most incredible looking computer. And keep in mind that I don't remember which organization it was, but they put together, I think it was 1,000 of them or something, to turn them into a great big grid supercomputer.
Yeah,
and it was
Tech, yeah.
Yeah, it was the 5th fastest supercomputer in the world at the time. That was pretty impressive to be done with just off the shelf computers, 64-bit architecture. I still consider the G5 Tower an absolute classic. If you want to talk about their shortcomings, it's the same as if you're talking about like a classic car. I mean, if you look at a 1970 Dodge Challenger, if you put that up against a modern sports car, it's going to do terribly. But, and its fuel economy is going to be awful. but it is still an absolute classic, and I just think the G5 is a real classic and an absolutely groundbreaking computer at the time.
Yep.
Yeah. And then when you hear these people who have never used one, or they were born after they were really made or anything like that, because these machines have been out for a while now. It's frustrating because they were like the fastest computer available at the time. And when I did that response to that short circuit video, the guy was like, "Oh yeah, the G3s were the end of the line for the Power PC." I'm like, "No!" And Bruce was like typing in all caps. He's like, "The G5 was like the best computer."
I made you go back and change the video.
And I did. Bruce was the reason behind that. But for a good point, because those things were screaming fast. Now, I never owned one up until a few years ago, and that's actually how I joined the PowerPC Gaming Lounge and MacYak, is because I ended up getting one, and I upgraded it a bit.
And
but,
that's how we met
machines.
Steve. That's how I actually.
Yeah.
To be honest with all you guys out there,
were also,
that's how most all of us.
Steve was kicking our butt.
Yeah.
They were the first Mac to be liquid cooled as well. First Mac to be liquid cooled.
Dana, is that from a G5 or a 1970?
This is from this is from a 73 Dodge Challenger. No, I mean, you look at how thick some of this metal is. Like this is like 3/16 inch aluminum. I mean, look how thick that is. This thing is heavy, and
that was the first production computer that I can think of that had a liquid cooled CPU.
Now
from the factory.
Obviously these are prone to failure, as you can see the corrosion on there. But this is actually not the bad part to get damaged. This here is the CPU. There's the heatsink with little copper tube there.
But that's for the VRMs, if I remember right. The little heatsink coming off the back there.
Yeah. So, but there's no corrosion on this board anywhere. It was all left on the LCS. So that thing's easy to clean up. These are going to be fine, I think. But Jay and I are going to work on that together one of these days.
Oh, hopefully he'll have better luck with yours than he did with mine. I sent him mine before I got a cleaner myself, and I don't think they cleaned up pretty well. But we'll see. From memory. Yeah, they were awful. I had one that just leaked all over the place.
So the liquid cooler uses DexCool, which is what GM puts in their cars, or at least used to. So it is a little corrosive, but this thing is actually in pretty decent shape. Just needs cleaned up and flushed, and I'm going to try and rebuild it and keep the machine stock. Yeah. I know
you can actually rebuild those if you put a brand new gaskets on that and you use universal coolant. Yeah, you'll be fine. It'll be fine.
And the G5s could be had for a song these days. I mean, a lot of people will mistakenly list them as a Mac Pro. Obviously the big physical difference is the Mac Pros have 2 optical drives. The G5 only has one.
Well, if you also look at the back of it, if they only show the back, you only see one fan versus 2 round fan.
Well, some of the G5s did have 2 though. I know the liquid cooled one
Mine has 2.
Mine has 2.
But the optical drive is.
The front USB ports are what I always look at, because the G5 had 1 USB and 1 FireWire, I think.
Yeah.
And then the Mac Pros all have like 2 of each.
Yeah, but if you get somebody who's selling on these social media sites and it's a blurry photo, usually you could tell if there's 1 or 2 optical drives. And just a word of warning, because Dana's talking about liquid cooling here. I got one. Thankfully, the seller I got it from was super nice. I got one, and I didn't remove the G5 platter that the thing that you can see in Rocky's background there. That comes right off with enough jiggling, and you could see if it's an air cooled or liquid cooled. You don't have to look up the specs. I mean, you could look up the serial number, you could find out, but it's pretty easy to tell once you remove that if it's liquid cooled or not, and look to see, as we know from Ken's video there, if there's any leakage from there, because the power supply is right under that. And if you have any issues with that, obviously you could have a bad time with it. So if you're looking to pick one up, make sure it's a G5. Make sure it actually is in decent shape with the cooling center there. But you could get them pretty cheap, and they make good machines for old games and all that fun stuff.
They work really well, especially with the video card that I have in mind. I have the what is it? The NVIDIA 6900 or?
No, I think yours is the 66.
Yeah,
like mine.
it's
I don't think you have the AGP, which came with the 6800 option.
But it's really nice because I mean I could run UT 2004 full graph. I mean everything maxed out and not lose any frame rate. I mean the frame rate is just awesome, amazing with that.
Yeah, I mean, I said in the chat, I have no personal nostalgia for the G5 because I never had one. I drooled over them at the Apple stores, but I never personally had one until a few years ago. But, you know, I have, you know, the dual core 2 gigahertz one, and it's really neat. I think I have a 1.8 that needs some work, but maybe we'll do a render farm in a video.
But like you said though, they make some pretty decent gaming machines. And when we do our Power PC challenge every year in January, okay,
these ones top the market.
I actually use my G5 all the time, and you could still do a lot of everyday normal tasks, albeit slower, with the G5.
Your room may raise a few degrees in temperature, but
yeah. I mean, I've got mine loaded up with all period correct software, and it, you know, for most tasks it goes really well. I mean, you know, I'm not necessarily going to try and edit 1080p video footage. I'm not going to
watch YouTube.
and you know, watch YouTube. I mean, the web is the thing that runs the worst on them, unfortunately, and that's more to do with what's happened with the web than anything. But yeah, I mean, they you know, move pretty swiftly when you're just doing a lot of tasks on them. So yeah.
And one thing I just want to interject in there, like, yeah, 1080p video may be sluggish at the codec you're using, but if you're using like mini DV 1080i codec or whatever, it actually should run pretty well. And I see a lot of these videos on YouTube where these people have like an old iBook or an old iMac, and they're like, oh, I want to edit video on this. The first thing they try and do is load up an H.264 video. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like screaming at the TV.
Now, there's one thing I want to mention about the G5 that, like was mentioned before, and just to reiterate it, because this was revolutionary in the computer realm period, is the cooling design of the G5. Because
straight shot all the way through.
Yeah, the only thing that even came close at the time was a server. So the G5 having that and not being like a jet engine taking off was exceptionally revolutionary. You know, it was game changing. This thing did.
And I think they said they had 9 fans in there, and they were silent. You know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was.
And
it was almost dead.
And there's 3 cooling zones if you think about it too. You had the power supply cooling zone. You had the middle cooling zone where the CPU and
actually,
PCR.
That makes it 4 then.
No, 3 because actually you're right, 4. 4 because you did have fans in the power supply. You had a fan, fans right there in the middle where the G5 is. And then you had the fan right up above where the PCI slots are. And then you had the fans up there where the CD and the hard drives were. So you had 4 different cooling zones.
Nothing ever got hot in this system. Nothing ever really did.
Now, if we want to talk about sort of shortcomings, for me, probably one of the main shortcomings was the fact that it only had 2 hard drive bays and 1 CD bay in it. For a computer that big, to only have the ability to put 2 hard drives in there, that was kind of I think a bit of a shortcoming. But that's again, it's got so much.
I think the biggest problem, the reason why though, Bruce, is because you got to look at the heat sinks on those things. Those heat sinks are just ridiculously large. I mean,
But at the same time, you have to think at the time, the hard drives that were originally installed in these G5s were actually supposed to be, you could purchase high performance drives that would have high RPMs and needed direct cooling to actually cool themselves. They were server class hard drives versus the ones that came in a, let's call it a workstation or a citizen computer. Those were, you could cool those things just with some rinky dink, ambient cooling. So something like this actually paved the way for a gaming computer. I remember this thing was like, it made a gaming computer look ridiculous because this was the gold standard of what became our modern.
Well, here's the thing too, if you think about it, and just slightly off topic here, but the Microsoft Xbox, the original games were actually coded on, guess what? A G5, because they used because they used a Power PC, and so they did the coding on a Power Mac G5.
Yep. And you know, I mean, all you have to do is look at the inside of your first gen Mac Pro and just how much cooler those systems ran. You obviously had, you know, double the hard drive space, double the optical drive space. So I think if maybe Apple, you know, redesigned that a little bit, you know, you might have had a bit to squeeze in there. I think it was either the G4 towers. There was some add-on where you could put the drives like in the door, the MDDs a little bit, or maybe a different way. But I think I remember seeing a mod. It might have been for the Mac Pro. I don't think it was for the G5, where you could add some hard drives in there through a SATA
Actually,
card.
there was. You are correct. You could put hard drives in this front slot, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
OWC made it.
Was,
or something
yeah,
like
it was some add-on. I mean, I wouldn't interrupt the airflow of that machine, but
yeah.
Thankfully, I'm sure you can just buy an eSATA card if it's compatible.
Well, anything from OWC, as Jay would say, is. All right. So, anything else on the G5 before we move on?
Yep.
All right, guys.
We've almost gone 2 hours.
No,
actually,
we're at an hour and 30. No, we haven't. Hour and 35.
5 minutes over.
Well,
yeah, you're looking at the.
I forget our call started 30
yes.
minutes before.
Okay.
Never mind.
All right. So we're getting to the end of the show here. So we're gonna do some shameless self-promotion. I am going to start. I got to get back into making some videos on the Mac Attack because I have actually broke 200 subscribers now. I'm at 202 as of today. So, and I keep getting subscribers, and I haven't made a video in over 2 months. So, so I guess I need to go and start making some videos and putting them out there. So I got to figure out some stuff I'm gonna make videos on. I know I want to do my ham radio stuff on there, so I'm going to do some more ham radio stuff, and especially since now I got these new donations that I got for free. I will probably be starting to use them a lot more instead of my polycarbonate MacBooks now. So there we go.
Yeah, wait, yours are not the polycarbonate. Yours are the plastic.
They're
polycarbonate are the ones that are the thin little 2009, 2010 models.
Yeah,
I thought they're
polycarbonate is plastic. Yeah.
Oh, I stand corrected.
There's the unibody.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, there's the unibody.
So
design
these aren't
both of them.
Okay. So these are also polycarbonate then.
Yes.
See, I learn something every day. Thank you.
So.
Thank you.
All right. So anybody else got anything going on that they want to shamelessly self-promote?
Actually, I do for once.
No!
I actually got I got a whole bunch of RAM for my 3,1, which is not what's in these trays. These trays are the old RAM. Currently, it's running the 32 gigabytes of 4 gig sticks that are all matched. So my plan is I'm going to make a video, and we're going to test out the RAM, and we're going to test out the actual design of the 3,1's memory channeling, because what it does with the trays and then what it does with dueling the trays together, it actually the shortcomings of an FB DIMM, but also actually makes it perform faster than even a desktop's memory. So I look forward to doing videos on that. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a whole bunch of tests and really fiddle around with this and shove it through its paces. And I'm gonna have some fun with it. So that's on my docket.
Okay. All right, who's going live next here? Steve or Bruce?
I am very much trying not to. I'm trying to finish what I got on my plate.
I mean,
Bruce will get more subscribers, but that's okay.
I've got a couple of recaps to do this weekend. I've got a really busy weekend ahead. I'm hoping that I will do a live stream of a recap. But I've also got to try and get some of the pre-recorded stuff wrapped up. I've got some videos that I've been working on for ages and I need to get happening. But yeah, just, business as usual for me.
All right, what about
who is winning the subscriber war?
Yeah, I think Bruce has won that war.
Bruce is currently winning.
I think Steve's waving the white flag already, or
I know these clone videos start coming out, and Steve may pull ahead.
The attack of the clones.
That's his secret weapon.
It's the attack of the clones.
I actually have some recapping work coming my way from a fan of our channel. So that should arrive in a day or so.
What are they thinking?
Oh, Lord. Yeah.
No. Come on, guys.
Hey, we've seen you recap.
Thinking this should be good for a 6-hour live stream.
It won't be an LC job. It's going to be a good. But
what's coming? What sort of computer is coming?
It's a SE30 and a
Awesome.
Classic 2.
So, fantastic!
Yeah, so those I have some experience in that area. So hopefully I've been warned the Classic 2 is a bit gnarly, so that'll be making good for a live stream maybe. So we'll see.
And we'll finally see him live. Chuck it out the window when he gets.
No. I'll do it with my boards, not a custom.
Start doing Eve.
Yeah.
Dana, you got anything going on or?
Well, I think last week I mentioned that my flooring was getting done in the basement finally, and the installer came and said, "You don't have the right materials." So yeah, I was not happy. Got it all straightened out though. So I've had the what they did was they gave me, instead of vinyl plank flooring, they gave me J-channel for vinyl siding, which I have no idea how you can get that wrong, other than the word vinyl being in the description. But anyway, I've had it here for a few days. They're coming tomorrow morning, and hopefully we'll get this knocked out so that this weekend I can go buy the furniture and shelves and stuff and start moving all of my computers out of the rest of the house, which is back here, down there. So
it's going to be weird to walk through that and be able to just like not navigate a path.
There you go. All right, guys. So we've come to the end of the show tonight, and make sure if you want to, you can join us on our Discord. We do have a Discord channel, our server that you all guys are welcome to come to. Yeah, I'm tongue-tied.
Don't forget to like the video.
Yeah, make sure you like and subscribe to this video. Remember, we only go once a week, so you're only going to get one alert a week.
We only got 14 likes, but we have 23 people watching.
I know.
That doesn't make sense.
Come on,
guys.
There we go. The likes.
We always have to remind you people.
There we go.
There we go. Now they're hitting that like button. Man.
We're going to turn this car around.
Yes. Anyways, guys, make sure you hit that button on there that alerts you to when we do go live, because that bell icon. Yeah, Steve, stop laughing. he's on mute right now. He's got to.
Steve likes my Jimmy Stewart impression.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's turn this thing around.
We need more likes.
We're gonna turn it around.
Steve. All right, we got to end this here soon. So, all right, guys, thanks for watching tonight, and we will see you guys again next week. Oh, also, one thing before we go, make sure you watch episode 69. We still have that giveaway going. We have not come close to being 1,000 subscribers, so make sure you go watch it.
Right.
And when we hit 1,000 subscribers, we're giving away a MacBook 2008 polycarbonate. We're giving away a $50 Steam card and an iPod from Grudy. So there we go.
And you know what? I will even throw in something out of my little stack over here if you happen to have a 3,1 or.
We're spicing it up a little bit more.
What is
it?
Shipping is
gonna be
Somebody's going to get a lot of stuff here.
Right?
Yeah.
What are you giving away? What is it? You got to spill the beans.
Hey,
now.
if it's the, if they happen to own a 3,1, I mean, what else am I going to do with the spare RAM that's sitting around? They can have their pick of the RAM, all of it if they want to.
Go.
Or they could use them as building blocks.
There you go.
16 gigs.
All right, guys. So we'll see you guys next week, and you guys have a great and wonderful weekend.